here in the US. I hope you have a great Labor Day weekend, a long weekend here. So Monday is Labor Day here in the US. It's a holiday, and myself, we're going camping in Maine. So we usually do that once a year. My brother-in-law lives in Maine, and so we go to his house and do a giant traditional lobster bake. He gets a big fire and burns it down to some coals, and then we throw a bunch of lobsters and seaweed and potatoes and corn on the fire and cook the lobsters that way, and then have a bunch of steamers, which for those of you who don't know, are just clams. Um, yeah, it's really delicious. It's one of my favorite days of the year. Super yummy stuff. Yeah, just a good traditional New England meal there. Hope everyone does something fun this weekend, regardless of whether you're in the U.S. or not, and you have a holiday or not. For today, I wanted to kind of, I don't know if it's gonna be the last video I do about the CGM or not. I might come up with some other ideas for next week, but we've talked a lot about, or I've shared a lot of the insights that I have come across over the past month or so with me wearing CGM. And obviously, I've highlighted a lot of good stuff, good information, just uh, good insights into how lifestyle can impact your blood sugar, and it goes far beyond, um, what we just eat every day. Um, and it might seem like a CGM is a great tool, and I think it is a good tool. But I think we still have a long ways to go as far as getting the most out of it. And part of the reason that I think that is true is because for the average person, even fairly well educated people, understanding what is good, what is bad, what is normal, what is concerning when it comes to what your blood sugar looks like is not set in stone. I don't think we know. Um, I think there's certain things we can say for sure around blood sugar that are probably not good. But a lot of the data that we have um, from people wearing CGMs and what the trend over the day looks like comes from people who are diabetic, because that's where they originally were invented to be used for, right? So CGMs traditionally, and even in the US today, you can't get one without a prescription from a doctor, are used for people who have diabetes, type 1 and type 2, in order to manage their diabetes appropriately. And it works well for that, right? But but a lot of the studies that we have around, CGM usage comes from people who are, um, not in the best of health, right? We don't have a ton of information on what a healthy individual looks like wearing a CGM. There are a few studies, but the number of studies done on healthy individuals wearing CGMs compared to the people who have diabetes wearing a CGM is very slim to none, right? And for example, we don't have, and if we start talking about specific populations of people, there's some people that are, just looking to be healthy, but then we have people who are looking to maybe optimize athletic performance or body composition or whatever. And we don't particularly understand what, a blood sugar response should look like for those people, right? So it's even in when you start looking at subgroups of healthy individuals, it can be, there can be a lack of understanding of what a good blood sugar response or a blood sugar trend over the course of 24 hours should look like. Um, then we can start talking about differences in race and ethnicity and sex and stuff like that. And all this stuff is kind of really unknown. And so that's just in general by scientists, right? Uh, and then if you just, if I was to stick a CGM on a person on the street, um, you know, it would give them all kinds of data, but they don't really know how to interpret it, right? And without a way to interpret it, it's not very useful. Um, and some of the apps are trying to do this, right, by ranking a meal or like showing, giving you some metrics to measure what the response looks like during the day. And like I said, I think that there's some obvious things here. Like if you have very high fasting blood sugar continuously, that's a bad thing. If you have prolonged high blood sugar responses to meals, that's a bad thing. But there's opinions out there that you shouldn't have a blood sugar response over 110 after eating a meal. And frankly, I don't think that that's you can have a peak into the 140s, 150s as long as it comes back down fairly quickly. That's perfectly fine. I haven't seen strong evidence in healthy metabolic people to say that otherwise. But the opinion of the people who developed the app says otherwise, right? And that brings me to kind of my second problem is that if someone who doesn't understand the nuances of blood sugar, they may be healthy and they stick a CGM on their arm and they're seeing that, oh, the meal that I just had that was, sweet potatoes and some vegetables and a meat shot my blood sugar up to 130 for 10 minutes, and it ranked my meal as a one. I can't eat that meal anymore. So I feel like there's a possibility that the ranking system can backfire and make people fearful of foods that when they don't need to be, right? Because frankly, I don't know that the opinion of the app is correct, right? And I'm not sure that uh, I can blame the app developers, or I'm saying that what they did is bad. I think they all have research behind why they choose certain thresholds, et cetera, and they can produce research. But again, it comes back to the fact that, I don't think research oftentimes can cover all contexts of all individuals. And so I think that it can oftentimes lead people to, you know, get anxiety or fear foods with when they don't need to. And I feel like there's, you have to pick some kind of threshold. You have to pick, some kind of, rules and develop an algorithm to somehow, um, make the information somewhat applicable to most people. But I think when you fall outside the boundaries of most people, then you start to get into the realm of like, just the information being not incorrect and potentially influencing people to eat a certain way unnecessarily, that might actually not be one necessary or even too good for their health. So much like the scale, I think it takes some conditioning to detach yourself to what the app says as far as whether the food is good and bad, and really understand the context of which you're eating and your metabolic health and what other things say around like your other objective blood markers look like, and that your body composition, that type of stuff. I think that it can provide a little bit of insight, but it has to be taken in the context of everything else as well. And that also brings me to my next point is that these CGMs are measuring blood glucose kind of indirectly, right? So if you were to, go to a blood lab and get your blood drawn and you get your glucose number on that lab, or if you were to prick your finger with a glucometer and measure your blood glucose that way, it's measuring it directly in the blood. Whereas a CGM actually doesn't measure in the blood. It sticks a little needle or filament underneath your skin in like it's not all the way into your blood. It's in kind of like subcutaneous in there, and it's measuring blood sugar in the interstitial fluid, they call it. So it's not directly in measuring blood glucose from your blood, and so it's not, you know, it's not it's not 100% accurate, and nothing is 100% accurate besides going to get your blood drawn, right? Even a glucometer is not guaranteed to be 100% accurate. I think in a CGM we can see up to like, I want to say 10 to 15%, but even higher. I can't remember off the top of my head of error in the readings, and the readings are also delayed in time because the time that it hits your blood sugar is not the same time that it hits the interstitial fluid in your skin. So it's not 100% accurate. So even if it's like 10 to 15%, like you're talking, it could be quite a big difference in numbers between what the CGM is saying and what it actually is, right? So that's another thing to keep in mind, just because you see a number that says, oh, I'm at, you know, 75, right? It could be maybe you're at 85, maybe you're at 90, right? Or, oh, I'm at 130, or maybe you're at 160, and or you're at 100, right? Like there's a lot of wiggle room here. The trend can be useful. If you look at the trend line, that's probably more useful than necessarily relying on the accuracy of the actual measurement. But because remember, the other thing that we have to keep in mind, it kind of combines the two things, that these CGMs are meant for use in diabetics, and their blood sugar is often a lot higher than a healthy individual. So if you're a healthy individual wearing a CGM, they were not meant to really be designed to be worn by someone who is healthy and has low blood sugar, right? So we don't really know like how, again, it comes back to having the studies done, um, what, how these work in a healthy individual, right? So I think the technology is great, and I think that it's the beginning of something that can be quite useful. However, I just don't think that slapping a CGM on everyone is going to be the panacea to solving everyone's health problems, whether you want to optimize body composition or improve your metabolic health, right? I think it can give you some information to help inform decisions along with other information that you might have um, to get you to where you want to be. But I don't think it is the one and only answer. And it shouldn't be surprising because nothing is the one and only answer, right? I mean, I love technology. I love measuring things. I love having data. Like I'm just a nerd about it, and that's great. And that's my background. It's not for everyone, but even I realize that all the data in the world is only useful if you can actually take action from it. And in order to take action from it, you one need to know how to interpret it correctly for you, and you also need to tie in all the other lifestyle, subjective and objective measures that you have of yourself to make a decision. So I just wanted to end with that caveat because I think oftentimes you might be hearing a lot of podcasts or information online of CGMs and see things like I've created, videos that I've created, and it might seem like the best thing in the world. And frankly, nothing is the best thing in the world. It's just, you got to take that data and you got to be able to interpret it, and you have to be able to uh, look at it alongside everything else, and then come up with a plan, and then refine that plan based on how it gets executed and how the data changes or does not change. And whether you work with someone like a physician, a medical physician, or a health coach, or just someone to help you interpret that data so that you're not kind of flying blind. Um, like I said, the apps do a fairly good job, but I think still having a second set of eyes is someone that's somewhat knowledgeable in this area, and I don't claim that that is me, but someone who's knowledgeable in this subject is useful for sure. So that's all I really had for today. I just wanted to get that topic out there. I think it's an important one to talk about and address. I don't want to make it seem like that I think that these things are the magic solution to everyone's problems. So I wanted to throw those caveats out there to everyone. So I hope you appreciate that. As always, I'm full of nuance. And I hope that that comes across nicely in these videos and the content that I create. So if you're interested in getting help with something like, getting some blood sugar issues under control or anything else, any other goals that you might have, please go to my homepage at rjbhealth.coach. Click the schedule a discovery call button on the homepage, and you can fill out the form there, and I'll get back to you about talking about health coaching, if we can work together and if we'd be a good fit to work together. So happy to do that if you, whatever your goal might be. And if you want to get all the content that I put out on a weekly basis delivered to your inbox without having to stalk me on social media, which can be a good thing sometimes, go to my webpage again, rjbhealth.coach, and click the newsletter link at the top. Enter your email address there in the form, and you'll be signed up for the newsletter, and I will email you these videos and as well as everything else that I put out, just a couple of emails a week. And if you find it completely useless and hate it, you can go ahead and unsubscribe, and I won't be offended, I promise. With that, I hope everyone has a good weekend. Happy Labor Day if you're in the US, and I'll talk to everyone next week.